All right, let's dive into something we all depend on, but probably don't think about nearly enough. We're talking about crop protection. And believe me, it's a silent, ongoing battle to get food from the farm to our kitchens. So I want you to picture this. A farmer standing in a field of beautiful, healthy crops. It looks like a success, right? You'd think the hard part is over. But is the job really done? The truth is, the moment those seeds sprout, the real fight is just begun. Exactly. Getting a plant to grow is just stage one. The next, and maybe even more important stage, is protecting it. It's this constant struggle to defend the crops from all sorts of threats, not just in the field, but long after they've been harvested. So, who are these enemies? Well, out there in the field, our crops are up against three major opponents, and any one of them can completely wreck a harvest if you're not careful. First on the list are the silent competitors, weeds. Unwanted plants like xanthium or parthenium. Think of them as tiny thieves sneaking into the field and stealing all the good stuff: food, water, sunlight, and space, right from under the noses of the crops we're trying to grow. That's why getting them out early is so crucial. Then you have the more obvious attackers, insect pests, and they've got a whole playbook of ways to cause damage. Some will literally cut and chew right through the plant's foundation, the roots, the stem, the leaves. Others are like tiny vampires, sucking the life-giving sap right out of the plant's cells. And then there's a third group that bores deep inside the stems and fruits, basically destroying them from the inside out. And finally, there are the invisible invaders, plant diseases. We're talking about things you can't even see, like bacteria, fungi, and viruses. These pathogens can hide in the soil, travel on the water, or even float through the air. They can spread like wildfire and wipe out an entire field before you even know what's happening. It's a microscopic threat, but it is absolutely devastating. So with all these enemies lining up, what's a farmer to do? How do they fight back? Well, their strategies basically fall into two main camps. You can either stop the problems before they even start, or you can react to them once they show up. So on one side, you have these proactive, preventative methods. These are all about working with nature to build up a strong defense. And on the other side, you have reactive chemical controls, which use powerful, man-made substances to take out threats that are already causing trouble. Let's talk about that preventative shield first. These are really clever, sustainable farming techniques. Things like preparing the soil just right, or planting seeds at the perfect time to give them a head start. There are other cool tricks, like intercropping, that's planting different crops together to confuse pests, or crop rotation, which breaks the life cycle of diseases. Even things as simple as using pest-resistant plants or just pulling weeds by hand can build up an amazing defense, often without a single chemical. Now let's look at the other strategy, chemical control. This is where pesticides come in. It's a general term for chemicals designed to kill very specific threats. You've got herbicides that target weeds, insecticides for insects, and fungicides to fight off fungal diseases. They can be sprayed right on the crops or used to treat the seeds and soil. Make no mistake, they are incredibly powerful tools. But, and this is a big but, that power is a double-edged sword. Using too many of these chemicals is a huge problem. See, they don't just kill the pests, they can be poisonous to a lot of other plants and animals, and they can cause serious environmental pollution. So finding the right balance is the real challenge. And that brings us to a really important thought. In this whole battle for our crops, when you think about the long-term health of our planet and ourselves, you have to ask, why is preventing the problem in the first place so often better than just curing it with chemicals? Okay, so let's imagine our crops made it. They survived the weeds, the bugs, the diseases. They've been harvested. Victory, right? Well, not so fast. There's one last huge hurdle to clear: storage. And the stakes here are unbelievable. If grains aren't stored the right way, a massive portion of all that hard work, all that produce, can be lost. And we're not talking about a small problem. This is a huge factor affecting our global food supply. The threats here, just like in the field, come in two main flavors. You've got your biotic factors. That means living things. Think insects, rodents, fungi, bacteria, basically anything that wants to eat the grain for lunch. And then you have abiotic factors, the non-living conditions. We're talking mainly about too much moisture or the wrong temperature, which, by the way, create the perfect party environment for all those biotic threats. So what happens when storage goes bad? Well, it's a mess. The quality of the food just plummets. Pests literally eat away at the harvest, so you lose weight. Seeds might not be able to sprout for the next season. The produce gets discolored. And what does all that mean? It means it becomes really hard to sell, which is a massive economic blow to the farmer. So, how do you make sure the storage is secure? It all comes down to a really careful, systematic process. First, you have to clean the produce, and I mean really clean it. Then, you have to dry it out properly to get rid of any extra moisture, first in the sun, then in the shade. And as a final step, you can use fumigation with special chemicals to take out any pests that might be hiding before it all gets sealed up. So we've walked through all the threats, all the defenses, both in the field and in storage. But let's just pull back for a second and think about the big picture. Why does all this work, all this protection, really matter in the grand scheme of things? It really boils down to two incredibly important things. First, doing this right ensures that there's enough food available for all of us. It's the absolute foundation of food security. And second, it supports the farmers themselves. A healthy, protected harvest means they can make a living and support their families. It's their entire livelihood. So the next time you sit down to eat, just remember this. The food on your plate didn't just grow, it survived. Every single meal you eat is the winner of a silent, invisible, and incredibly complex battle. And when you think about it that way, it gives you a whole new appreciation for the food that nourishes us every single day.